They all said I was like Athelstan's hound. Why else would I come and go at Athelstan's beck and call without a hint of complaint? Only I knew the truth. Before he turned 13, he'd been kicked in the head by a donkey while trying to save me. It was in remembrance of that act of life-saving grace that I had tolerated him until now. The summer sun beat down fiercely on the sports field. The rhythmic thump of the basketball against the ground echoed in the heat. It was only on the third time Athelstan called my name that I finally looked up. The figure standing in the center of the basketball court was visibly impatient, his brow furrowed as he gazed at me. Clutching the bottled water, I jogged over. "What were you daydreaming about?" His knuckles tapped lightly against my forehead. I instinctively flinched back. Squinting at him, I thought his jawline seemed sharper, more defined than my own life plans. Because of the fine sheen of sweat on his forehead, he casually swept his hair back, revealing his features fully. No wonder the girls courtside had been letting out excited squeals just moments before. After he finished drinking, he balanced the empty bottle on my head, a subtle, enigmatic smile playing on his lips. "Keep it there." What a pain. I shifted slightly, and the bottle tumbled to the ground. As I bent to retrieve it, he had already turned and rejoined the game. The second half of the match ended as dusk began to settle. A gentle evening breeze caressed my neck. I was just about to get up to go to him when a girl ran up to him from behind. I knew the girl. She was the president of the basketball club. As for why the president of the basketball club was a girl, and why she never participated in school basketball games, I had no idea. All I knew was that she was practically plastered to Athelstan's side, and her gaze kept flickering towards me. I considered myself no threat whatsoever. I stood up and handed Athelstan the jacket I had been holding on my lap. He took it without a word, as if it were his due. "Put your jacket on. Don't catch a cold." "I'll remind Brother Athelstan," the girl said with a sweet smile beside him. "I'll be back late tonight," Athelstan said, his voice carrying a natural chill. It seemed they had already made plans. I wanted to tell him that tonight was my birthday and that he had promised to spend it with me. But then I thought better of it. Let it go. He would be missing a day that, to him, should have been incredibly important. 10 years ago today, Athelstan had been kicked in the head by a donkey while trying to save me. It was a real donkey kick, a real month-long hospital stay. And he truly had amnesia, though not the all-encompassing kind you see in dramas. His memory loss was fragmented, a jumble of lost pieces and confusion. The result? The adorable little Athelstan from before he turned 13 was gone. To what extent was the pre-13 Athelstan adorable? He used to say I was a princess and he was my knight. Why a knight and not a prince? Because he wanted to protect me forever. Thinking about it made me angry. The current Athelstan, far from protecting me, seemed intent on stabbing me in the heart at every opportunity. His vows had been devoured by dogs. However, I had a vow of my own. Because he had saved me, I silently swore in my heart that from the day he rescued me, this princess would listen to him for 10 years. Today marked the expiration of that 10-year promise. On countless days before today, I had wanted to scatter Athelstan's ashes to the four winds. I had just finished enjoying cake with my friends, beautifully prepared to go to bed, when, at the very moment before I drifted off to sleep, my phone vibrated. That wretched Athelstan. I hung up and was about to burrow back under the covers when the phone rang again. "Hello? R76, come pick me up." The voice on the other end was low and slurred, probably from a bit of alcohol. I had indeed gotten up at 1 or 2 in the morning to fetch him before, but today was the end of that. Never again. So I simply turned on Do Not Disturb and drifted into dreamland. The next morning, I saw that Athelstan had called me 7 or 8 times. And 2 messages on WeChat. "You dare hang up on me?" ? I didn't reply. The fact that I hadn't deleted him was the last vestige of mourning for our years of shared history. But he didn't contact me after that. For 2 or 3 days, life without having to follow Athelstan around was surprisingly blissful. My quality of life even seemed to have improved significantly. In the afternoon, I went out to do some research with a junior student from my group. I bought him a milk tea. He held the milk tea but didn't drink it. "What's wrong?" "Oh, senior sister, I get it." The junior student scratched his head, wearing an expression that said he saw through everything. "You want me to take this to Brother Athelstan, right? We have a basketball game this afternoon." "Not at all." I took the milk tea back, punctured the lid with the straw, and held it to his lips, shaking my head. "It's over between us." "Really?" Senior sister, you've finally seen the light? You're not going to be his doormat anymore. It seemed he had blurted out what he was really thinking. Actually, we've all been guessing these past few days. Because you used to wait outside Brother Athelstan's classroom after every class. And you always brought him lunch and milk tea, but you haven't gone to see him lately. Did Brother Athelstan do something to hurt you? Hurt me? Yeah. He had done that far too many times. And I heard. The junior student lowered his voice, a conspiratorial glint in his eye. Athelstan's been in a particularly foul mood these past few days. So everyone's saying that your steadfastness made Athelstan realize that he had a place for you in his heart all along, but you've already left him. Okay, stop. You're making up stories. Besides, I never liked him in that way. Sometimes, reality is more dramatic than fiction. We turned the corner and ran into Athelstan. This was the first time we had seen each other since I hung up on him that night. This person always wore his emotions on his sleeve. I was used to his mood swings, so I met his gaze for a long moment without any particular reaction, intending to pull the junior student past him. But he suddenly grabbed my wrist. In front of the junior student. Was he trying to prove the story true? He was clearly angry, and even angrier upon seeing me. He practically dragged me to an empty stairwell, looking down at me with a sneer. Hooked a new little brother, have you? The stairwell was dimly lit, shadows obscuring his features. I couldn't see what was hidden in his eyes, and I had no interest in finding out. So I simply played along with his words. Yes, a new little brother. Lyra Elmsworth. He practically spat my name out through gritted teeth. Why didn't you reply to my messages? His question was whispered close to my ear, his hot breath sending a tingling shiver across my skin. I pulled away from him. I don't know. Maybe I got tired of it. Tired. He let out a short, sharp laugh. I guess that my absence these past few days had displeased the young master, but I was no longer inclined to cater to his moods. Lyra Elmsworth, you'll regret this. I raised an eyebrow. His smile gave me a bad feeling. He used to smile at me a lot, but mostly when he was playing tricks on me. He once gave the lunch I had spent all morning making to someone else, blaming me for making it too unappetizing. He had smiled like that back then, too. That's why I didn't like the current him. He used to be a bit dim-witted, but he would have gotten his head kicked in by a donkey for me. The current him would probably push me in front of the donkey and then mock me. I was so nostalgic for the old Athelstan that I had a dream about him during my afternoon nap. It was the summer when we were 11 or 12, and we were spending the summer in the countryside. It was a kaleidoscope of memories. One moment he was climbing a tree to find fruit for me, the next he was digging ice pops out of the freezer for me to suck on. He said he wanted to be Ultraman. I was more precocious than other kids my age, so I told him Ultraman didn't exist. No, Ultraman exists. I have Ultra power. Okay, you're Ultraman. I'm a giant monster. You're supposed to save the world, but I want to destroy it. What are you going to do? I asked him, resting my chin on my hand, utterly bored. I thought he would say something like, then I'll blast you with my Ultra beam. But he actually furrowed his brow and thought about it for a long time. Okay, then I'll be a little monster. He said he would protect me. I had always felt indebted to him because he had truly acted as a knight. It was I who insisted on provoking the enraged donkey in the pouring rain that day, but it was he who took the brunt of the frightened beast's attack. I knew he wasn't at fault. He just forgot. He just forgot all about Ultraman, little monsters, and summer ice cream. Maybe he would remember one day, or maybe he never would. But I would still get angry at times when he mocked me. I would still, when he said the new clothes I bought were ugly, or that I had gained weight, immensely miss the child who said he would protect me. I just considered my knight to have been stolen by a dragon. He was dead. So I woke up from my nap feeling frustrated and ruffled my hair. The lab was supposed to be empty. Supposed to be. But in the seat next to mine, there was a person sitting properly, reading a book. Awake? Hadrian Finch was my advisor's prize student, and in a way, my senior. At that moment, he was looking down at the book in his hands, his gold-rimmed glasses reflecting the fading light of the setting sun. I looked at him, dazed, unable to count how many eyelashes he had. I need the experimental data from the professor. I came to get it from you. My senior's voice was always so clear and cold. I nodded and handed him the data sheets that the group had organized that morning. But he remained seated, showing no sign of leaving. There were few people in the classroom. I realized I was standing and he was sitting, looking up at me. The infinitely gentle sunset light fell into his eyes, seemingly frozen by his cool demeanor. The sudden silence made me quite awkward. "Senior, is there anything? I heard you and Athelstan broke up. What was with everyone today, being so concerned about my emotional life?" "We didn't break up because we were never together." He was silent for a long moment. "You want to see him every day. I thought you two were together." I felt like my senior's gaze was saying, "You were never together, so why were you being such a doormat?" I didn't want to explain the childish 10-year promise I had made to myself when I was young, so I just let it go. My senior didn't say anything after that. He closed his book and stood up. He walked to the doorway and turned to look at me. It was clearly the summer evening breeze with cicadas chirping, but I felt a chill. "Come with me." My senior said that the professor wanted to see me. The office of our school's visiting professor was located down a long alley. The mottled marks on the walls always seemed to stand in the dimness of time, so a gust of wind could strip away the noise from the sports field. "Why don't you like him anymore?" my senior asked me from in front of me. I hadn't noticed you being so nosy before. It was difficult for me to explain, but not answering him was equally difficult. Hadrian Finch was a rather special existence in our college. Although there were so many girls who liked him, it seemed to require courage to even speak to him. Fortunately, the vibration of my phone broke the awkwardness between us. It was my roommate, and she sounded very anxious. "Lyra, where are you? Please look at the grade group chat. It's blowing up." I originally thought, what does the group chat arguing have to do with me? But I didn't expect that the current core of their discussion was me. The cause was that a girl had lost her laptop in the classroom. The surveillance cameras in our building were being upgraded and serviced that day, so she was searching everywhere in the group chat for her lost laptop. I had actually seen the notice she posted in the common area. The implication was that she was convinced someone had stolen her laptop and was giving the thief 3 days to return it, or she would call the police. But 3 days passed, and no one contacted her. She asked in the group chat, and originally, it was nothing. People usually don't reply to these lost and found messages unless it concerns them. But someone replied below, saying that they saw me being the last one to leave the classroom that day, carrying a large bag. It was the president of the basketball club who replied. This set off an explosion. The owner, seeing news of her laptop, frantically asked who I was, which college and class I was in. I was sleeping at the time, so I didn't reply. The sensitive owner, plus a bunch of people adding fuel to the fire with their analyses, was now almost convinced that I was guilty and afraid to reply. I carefully recalled the day. It was the same class as Athelstan. As usual, I should have walked out with him. Because I had to carry his clothes. So I said in the group chat that I wasn't the last one to leave the classroom. I was with Athelstan. The owner saw my reply and had to let it go. The onlookers dispersed, and then Athelstan suddenly jumped out in the group chat and said a sentence. "I wasn't with you." When I saw this sentence, I suddenly remembered him smiling and telling me not to regret it. I stared blankly at the phone screen as message after message popped up. The owner thought I was lying and grabbed onto me, demanding that I go to the counselor's office with her. The basketball club president's statement was also very clever, saying something like, "I told you I didn't see wrong." Athelstan didn't appear after that sentence. Some people in the group chat were even starting to tell me to apologize. A wave of panic surged from the bottom of my heart, as if I had suddenly been accused of something, and I didn't know how to explain it. I remembered very clearly that I left the classroom with Athelstan that day. He had basketball practice that night, and I carried his water and clothes. He had always had a good memory. I didn't believe he could forget. That is to say, he did it on purpose, to make a scene and watch me humiliated. I don't remember when Athelstan started enjoying playing tricks on me so much. At first, it was just small pranks, and then it became increasingly worse. One afternoon, filled with the loud chirping of cicadas, he deliberately gave me the wrong address, making me search for him for 2 hours under the scorching sun. When I found him, he was sitting on the railing of the school sports field, the blue sky and white clouds behind him, his amber eyes reflecting my panting figure, a subtle smile playing on his lips. "Why do you have to follow me?" I thought his smile at that moment was too bright. "Because you saved me, Athelstan." In an instant, his smile vanished. He knew that he had been kicked in the head by a donkey at the age of 13 while trying to save me, and he knew why I had been following him all this time. He was holding a bottle of mineral water in his hand. I didn't notice it at first until he unscrewed the cap and poured the water over my head. It soaked my hair and clothes. It wasn't actually cold in the heat of summer, and there was even a slight chill. I stood there, feeling like I must look pretty pathetic. Will you still follow me now, His voice was incredibly lazy, but his words were so cruel. I kept telling myself that Athelstan had undergone surgery for a whole day and night, and if he hadn't been saved, I would have owed him his life. But I still shivered involuntarily, probably because the cold water had seeped into the back of my neck. That night, I had a fever. I probably had a mild cold a few days before, and with the wet clothes, the fever wasn't high, but it made me drowsy. I sniffled in bed, and sniffling turned into crying. I thought it was probably because the fever was so uncomfortable, or maybe I wasn't as strong as I thought. I owed Athelstan. I intended to repay him with my 10 years. During this time, it didn't matter what he did to me because I owed him. I owed him. When I came back to my senses, my senior had already sat down beside me and read through the entire chat history with my hand. The C-building incident? I nodded. Did you steal it? He smiled with a quirk of his lips. I knew he was joking, but I only now noticed that his eyes were peach blossom-shaped, and his smile always added a touch of flirtatiousness. Let's go. He suddenly changed direction. Where to? I caught up with him. To find your grades counselor. Since Athelstan is unwilling to testify for you, I'll testify for you. Senior. He turned to look at me, the mottled light from the alley falling into his eyes. Perjury is bad, I know. Even if this matter was really brought to the counselor, it couldn't be resolved hastily. I heard that the police had already intervened, and the uproar in the group chat had subsided. Of course, I remembered that Athelstan knew he could testify for me and deliberately threw the blame on me. I was really angry. I had endured every previous instance of anger, but this time it was impossible. I went to the internet cafe near the school that he frequented. I knew he would be there. I even knew the computer station he usually occupied, but the person at that computer today wasn't him. I thought I would be returning empty-handed, but I bumped into him at the corner of the wall by the entrance of the internet cafe. He originally had a cigarette in his mouth. The faint light of the lighter flickered and disappeared, and he put the cigarette and lighter back in his pocket. What's up? He asked me, looking down. Wasn't I with you every Friday after the last class? Why did you say you didn't see me that day? Yeah. When weren't you with me? His emphasis was strange, and his voice was hoarser than before. Why weren't you with me this time? Why do I have to be with you? I took a few steps back, and he pressed forward. The person in front of me was somewhat unfamiliar. His hair seemed to have grown longer, some strands covering his obscure eyes. Didn't you say you owed me? What, have you paid it back? I opened my mouth but couldn't say anything. Lyra Elmsworth, that day, who knows? I've forgotten long ago. Maybe you just weren't with me that one day. You know I have problems here. He pointed to his head. After all, I forgot everything before I was 13. Forgetting one or two small things wouldn't be too much, right? Then you should go to the hospital and get your head checked, Athelstan. I furrowed my brow, wanting to push him away. He blocked my path. The lights that lit up one after another outlined his silhouette with a golden edge. Something I couldn't understand surged in his eyes. These past few days, my head has been hurting. I told you to go to the hosp. He suddenly grabbed my wrist and slowly, crouched down in front of me, his forehead. When my head hurts, I always remember something. But it's very blurry, very blurry. My gaze fell on the top of his black hair. For a moment, his shadow overlapped with the shadow of the child who used to cling to me. Do you think I'll regret it? His voice was sticky and so hoarse that I couldn't hear him clearly. How would I know? I looked up behind him. The street scene was bustling, with car lights flowing past, igniting fleeting light. Did you make it clear? My senior had sat down beside me at some point, holding 2 cans of coffee and handed one to me. I don't really drink coffee, and drinking coffee at night keeps me awake. But he opened his can on his own and took a big gulp, his Adam's apple bobbing under the moonlight, inexplicably drawing my attention. So I followed his example and opened mine, taking a sip. It was indeed terribly bitter. There was a man-made lake below the lab building. The scenery was very nice, but it was near the medical school's area for storing cadavers, so there were hardly any people here at night. I didn't know how he found me. Maybe it was really a coincidence, but I wasn't in the mood to guess. Athelstan said his memory was somewhat recovering. Actually, over the years, I had long separated Athelstan from the child from back then. I didn't know how to face him. I only wanted to avoid Athelstan, but as for him, I didn't even say thank you to the child from back then. Senior, can I ask you a question? Suppose you really like eating fish, but one day you get a fish bone stuck in your throat. That bone scratches your throat, leaving a bloody mark. You spend a lot of effort to remove it. Will you eat it again? He looked at me quietly, gazing at me for a long time. I would switch to a different fish. The moonlight fell softly into his eyes, bright and clear. Sleepy? The person beside me stood up and looked at me. The shimmering light on the lake was fully reflected in his eyes. Just had coffee. How could I be sleepy? I thought so too. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly. I realized that he seemed to quite enjoy smiling as well. Would you like to go somewhere with me, Lyra Elmsworth? That night, I looked up at him just like that. The young man's collar was slightly open, and there was a light, airy glow in his eyes. The shimmering lake was dazzling for a moment, and the evening breeze suddenly stirred emotions. I agreed, almost possessed, and took the hand he extended towards me. I had actually heard before that Hadrian's family was very wealthy. But when the concept of wealthy translated to the orange supercar I was now sitting in, I still couldn't quite process it. This was a world far removed from mine, very far. It's a little embarrassing to admit, but it was my first time in a sports car. I was startled by the roar of the engine as it tore through the air. The wind howled past the windows, and the stream of lights from the night scenery rushed into my head. For a moment, my adrenaline did surge. I could feel my heartbeat and my scattered soul. Where are we going? I asked. The roar of the engine was like the roar of a beast. I don't know, he said. This wasn't the Hadrian I usually saw. Hadrian was a very capable person. He was very serious and had his own opinions. When we were working on group projects, he was always the center, and we always asked him first if we encountered any difficulties. But today, he told me he didn't know. Just driving on the highway, the distant streetlights stretching for miles. In the end, we stopped in front of a convenience store. A moment of silence, as if nothing had happened. When I'm feeling frustrated, I drive this. Hadrian patted his steering wheel. Just drive around on the highway. But it doesn't seem to be working now. I stared at him. But he had already buried his head in the steering wheel. I could only see the black tips of his hair and the slightly reddened tips of his ears. At this hour, it seemed that only the convenience store was lit with a faint light. Floating light shimmered between us, quiet as if isolated from the hustle and bustle. I got out of the car and went into the convenience store to buy him a bag of warm milk. He held the bag of milk with his mouth, but didn't drink it. What, you can't get used to the milk of the common folk? He chuckled, his eyebrows arching for a moment, then disappearing just as quickly. What if I? He suddenly pointed to the back of his neck, the casual night falling into his eyes, holding a touch of moonlight. Tattooed your name here? I was startled. But the person in front of me looked at me calmly, his eyes so serene, the fragmented light within them bright and clear. He was serious. I stared at him blankly, but he laughed first. You don't want me to? I didn't know how to answer him, but fortunately, he continued on his own. If my father knew I had another girl's name tattooed on my body, she'd probably kill me. Then why would you still tattoo it? He looked at me. I realized after a moment. Doing things your family doesn't want you to do. I had gone through that phase too, probably when I was in my senior year of high school. It's called a rebellious phase. The engine of the sports car roared again, but this time our destination was my dormitory. The engine of this car was actually quite loud, but once it stopped, it was quiet as if it had never been there. Hadrian leaned back in his seat, his head tilted, and said nothing. I suddenly felt that the world was truly amazing. If you don't get close to a person, you have no idea what their other side is like. He finally bit open a corner of the bag of warm milk. I got out of the car and he looked up at me. The heavy twilight fell into his eyes, making them seem less cold than before. Bye, I said to him. He hummed from his throat, his eyes fixed on me. Starlight streamed into the galaxy of his eyes. I thought, it's a good thing he doesn't like to smile. Otherwise, what rebellious phase? He wouldn't be able to handle all the attention. This week, my mother called me. It was from her that I learned Athelstan was hospitalized. Oh, he went out drinking late at night and fell down the stairs when he wasn't home, hitting his head again. You'd think young Athelstan would be smarter than that. Lyra, Why don't you talk to him? Is he heartbroken or something? Why go out drinking late at night? Could he have fallen in with a bad crowd? You're at the same school. Do you know anything? I really didn't know. I didn't even know Athelstan hadn't been coming to class these past few days. My mother talked a lot on the phone about taking some fruit to see Athelstan. If he had any problems, I should try to talk to him, and asking the doctor if his head was okay. I agreed to everything so I could finally hang up. The room number was sent to my phone. I understood the worries of the elders. Athelstan and I had both gone to school quite far away, and it was difficult for our parents to come. But I didn't want to see him right now. At least not now. So I asked Athelstan's roommate to deliver a fruit basket for me and then ask about the questions the elders were worried about to fulfill my duty. That afternoon, his roommate's call came to my phone. Hello? There was no sound on the other end for a long time. I thought it was a misdial and was about to hang up when a voice I hadn't heard in a long time came from the receiver. Do you not want to see me that much, Lyra Elmsworth? What he said seemed unchanged, still as before, arrogant and casual. I didn't want to argue with him. He was like a powder keg. How's your injury? Your mother is very worried about you. What about you? Are you worried about me? Did you hit your head again, Athelstan? Speak properly. I couldn't hold back anymore. Yes, I hit my head again, and I also remembered a lot of things. I admit, my breath caught in my throat at that moment. Do you think I'll apologize to you? Do you think you're so great? Following me around for 10 years, doing whatever I told you to do. It was I who liked you when we were little. Do you think that after regaining my memory, I should be regretting everything? Heh, Lyra Elmsworth, I just think you're a hypocrite. If he had said this to me face to face, I would have slammed my dinner tray into his face. You. I opened my mouth, only to find that I had nothing to say. Am I a hypocrite? I was a hypocrite, doing whatever he told me to do. I was a hypocrite, sitting under the scorching sun, holding his clothes. I was a hypocrite, getting a whole bottle of mineral water poured over my head by him, and then catching a cold and fever. How hypocritical I was, following him like a little tail. Only to be kicked by him in the end. I realized that by the time I had organized some words of greeting, he had already hung up. I was so angry that I almost gritted my teeth to pieces, wanting to refute something, but my nose started to sting first. I never wanted his apology. I just thought that no matter what, it was good that he remembered. Maybe then he wouldn't be so casual with me. Maybe then he wouldn't look at me with those eyes that looked down on me. Maybe then he would stand in front of me when others slandered me. I thought he was still him, but he was long gone. It was I who was trapped in 13 years ago. It had always been me. I was so angry that I deleted all his contact information. When I went to delete WeChat, I found that it was all those little things he ordered me to do. Lyra Elmsworth, buy me a bottle of mineral water. Lyra Elmsworth, bring my clothes over. Lyra Elmsworth, don't bring me food, it's not tasty anyway. Lyra Elmsworth, yellow doesn't suit you. Don't wear that dress, it's ugly. I really listened to him. The early winter rain seemed to soak into one's bones. The rain wasn't heavy, so I simply braved the rain back to the dormitory. A string of bicycle bells passed by, and the raindrops falling into the puddles still created ripples. I had thought about rushing directly into Athelstan's hospital room, pulling him out of bed, and giving him a thorough beating, but the action was extinguished by a rain. I didn't want to see him. It was a bit disgusting. I never thought my 10 years were meaningless before, but now I just felt like I had fed everything to the dogs. I kicked the pebbles in front of me, making them jump several times. What are you thinking about? You're so engrossed. Until someone next to me spoke. How long had Hadrian been following me? He was driving a car, moving slowly beside me at my pace. Not the supercar from that night, but another one, much more understated than that flamboyant orange. Even though it was raining in the afternoon, there were still many people on campus. I could vaguely feel some gazes gathering on us because of what he was doing. Why aren't you using an umbrella? His gaze was still fixed on me. I'm almost at the dormitory, senior. Why don't you just get in the car? I knew it. The black car stopped with me and didn't move. My gaze met his for a moment. The person in the car narrowed his shallow peach blossom eyes. My cat can do a backflip. Who could refuse a cat that could do a backflip? That's what I thought as I sat on the sofa in Hadrian's house. Unfortunately, his cat ran away as soon as it saw me, scurrying faster than a rabbit. I looked around the somewhat large home with a little restraint. According to what Hadrian mentioned casually, this was still considered a small one of his downtown houses. He handed me a cup of black tea and sat on the sofa opposite me. A very safe distance. We sat there facing each other, and I felt like he was just staring at me. But it would be too strange for me to look back at him in this situation. Fortunately, he took out his phone and made a call. Abner, send a set of clothes over, women's. I was instantly overwhelmed by the gesture. Say senior. It was the first time I had encountered this situation. I really wanted to tell him that it was just a little rain and there was no need to change clothes. The bathroom is on the second floor. It's best to take a shower. Don't catch a cold. He was still very considerate, thinking of everything. I admit, I was like a country bumpkin. I thought changing clothes like changing cars was the limit of my understanding of their class, but when I got on their home elevator, I was numb. Senior, if you told me you also had a swimming pool, I wouldn't be surprised. Are you referring to the indoor or outdoor one? He really did. The bathroom was ridiculously large, twice the size of my room at home. After taking a shower, I wiped my hair and came out. Seeing the person extending a hand with well-defined knuckles to tease the cat on the sofa, I thought, this isn't just a senior. This is my benefactor. The white cat with a pair of sapphire blue eyes purred and rubbed against his hand, while he rested his chin on his hand and looked at me. It suits you very well. Clothes worth 5 figures. Even if they didn't fit, I would force myself to wear them. Hadrian said the clothes weren't a gift. I had to accompany him to see a friend. Where to? When he switched to another sports car, I was no longer surprised. I even knew that the car doors opened upwards. A bar, he said. So Hadrian also went to bars. The bar Hadrian mentioned was actually located in a place far from the bustling downtown area. Even so, at night, the luxury cars at the entrance were still lined up one after another. The dim venue, plus the rather stimulating sound system, the changing lights hitting the noisy people. I was led by him to a booth, where a group of young men and women were already gathered. Yo, Old Finch, you really came? A young man holding 2 beautiful women greeted us. He seemed to be quite familiar with the people here. The rhythmic drumbeat was turned up to the maximum, so people had to shout loudly to speak. It's your first time bringing a girl. This time I heard clearly. Hadrian's hand squeezing my shoulder tightened. He led me to sit in a corner and casually took a cup to cover the dice. His deep pool-like eyes were suddenly illuminated by the mottled light into the blue of the seabed, elegant and enchanting. First time here? I shook my head. It wasn't my first time. I had been to one before with my curious roommate. He smiled. The young man handed him a bottle of wine. He filled the cup and drank it down in one gulp. I couldn't hear any sound in the noisy crowd, but he leaned close to me, and the breath he exhaled had a scent of alcohol and sweetness. My earlobe inexplicably went numb. It's my first time. Don't scare me. But it also seemed to fit his character quite well. No smoking, no drinking, sometimes working on experiments until the doorman came to chase him away. His life should completely exclude the option of nightlife. The stage in the center of the dance floor rose, and the scantily clad beauties dancing around the pole dance declared that tonight had just begun. Hadrian squinted at the moving crowd, pouring himself one cup of wine after another. I wanted to ask him if it was too much. But this feeling was very strange. I just wanted to see something destroy him. People naturally have that desire to stain something clean. He was like a spotless white paper, finally about to be tainted with dirt. Until the beauty beside the young man twisted her waist and rubbed against him, he avoided it. He took my hand and walked towards the back door of the bar. What's wrong? Don't want to drink anymore? I asked him, walking through the crowd. He pursed his lips and didn't speak. The bar was built at the foot of some mountain. Behind, the door was the road up the mountain. He pulled me along, walking. I couldn't walk anymore, and he finally stopped. Just halfway up the mountain, there was nothing much to see. I found a rock and sat down. He stood in front of me. It's boring, he said, looking down at me. Hadrian Finch, look, the moon is very curved today. I said to him, but he didn't look. He just kept his head down. Maybe he had drunk too much. His eye sockets were a little red. I wanted to tell him that when you smile, your eyebrows are as curved as the moon today. Very beautiful. But in the end, I didn't say it. The mountain wind rolled the autumn leaves, and the bright moon illuminated the boundless edge of his silhouette. He was unhappy, I knew. But I also felt that I couldn't say anything to him. He and I were standing on different ground from birth. He could reach down and touch the things I looked up to. I couldn't understand his pain. My hand tugged at the corner of his clothes. I was racking my brains to give him some inspiring words, but before I could speak, something in his eyes unraveled. Like swallowed clarity or perhaps inherent desire. He leaned down, one hand around my neck, and kissed me. Not a tentative taste, but a full-on assault. No one looks at the other person when they kiss. I quietly peeked open my eyelids to look at him, and I was almost swallowed by the madness swirling in his eyes. Not gentle at all. I left the clothes I had changed out of at his house, so I had to go back with him to get them. Walking back, I was about 2 or 3 meters away from him. Lyra Elmsworth, he called my name. I didn't know if he was still drunk or not, but I heard his voice hoarse and sticky. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Come closer, okay? Senior, what number is this? I held up 2 fingers in front of him and wiggled them. He squinted, his windbreaker making him look tall and slender, but he stood with a boneless posture from drinking. His gaze didn't linger on me for more than a few seconds. He looked behind me, and in an instant, a thin layer of ice formed in his eyes. We had clearly turned off all the lights when we left, but his house was now brightly lit. That was the first time I met Hadrian Finch's mother. The woman sat primly on the sofa, with an expensive-looking fur wrapped around her shoulders. She didn't even look like a middle-aged woman, but the gaze that was firmly glued to me made me uncomfortable. Why are you here? When Hadrian Finch saw the person sitting on the sofa, he stopped in his tracks, wanting to enter. He frowned with some disgust. Hadrian, who is that beside you? The woman raised her chin, but she was asking about me. Hadrian let out a sneer. The atmosphere was wrong, very wrong. My intuition told me that the woman was Hadrian Finch's family, but Hadrian's attitude was beyond the scope of ordinary family grievances. Hadrian, you've grown bold, haven't you? Bringing some questionable woman home. Ignoring the Joe family's daughter for this wild girl? She's only after our family's money. The woman's spearhead suddenly pointed at me, her fingers painted with red nail polish pointing directly at my nose. I advise you to drop your schemes. Hadrian let out a small, quiet laugh behind me. The villa was already spacious and quiet, so his laughter was somewhat mocking. He pulled my hand and dragged me behind him. Jocasta Langley, I think your description sounds a lot like yourself. You. The woman's face changed for a moment, but she quickly adjusted and glared at me again. I'm doing this for your own good. This rustic girl, I will not allow her to marry into our family. I never thought I needed your approval for whom I marry. Hadrian Finch narrowed his eyes and pulled me further behind him, but the hand holding my wrist was a little too tight. He wasn't as calm as he appeared. You believe me or not, I'll tell your father? Who do you think is providing everything you have now? If I tell your father to cut you off, you'll still be. I didn't hear the rest of the words clearly. Because Hadrian let out a tisk sound and pulled my hand, walking directly towards the door, leaving the woman in the house to curse angrily. Wait, I'll drive. When he sat in the driver's seat of another SUV, I grabbed him. He turned to look at me. The moonlight fell lightly into his eyes, and even though it was muddled, it still swayed people's hearts. As if he hadn't heard my words clearly. I'll drive. I sighed. You've had so much to drink. If you drive, what if you crash and kill me? Then we'll die together. He said that, but he still obediently sat in the passenger seat. I had only ever driven my mother's car before. It was my first time controlling such a large SUV. The view was much wider than I expected, but the road was dark, and I couldn't see the end. He didn't speak, and I didn't know how to start. After an unknown amount of time, his voice came from beside me. The road at night was always very quiet, and it was also very quiet in the car, so I could seem to catch the tremors in his voice when he spoke. That woman is not my biological mother. I gripped the steering wheel. Sparse streetlights stretched along the elevated highway. On a whim, I drove onto it. My mom died a long time ago. She was my dad's first love or something. 3 months after my mom died, she came looking for my dad. That woman has always wanted to have my dad's child, but my dad gave her everything except that. Over the years, she's caused countless scenes, both openly and secretly. Now she's getting older. She probably knows that when I inherit the property, she won't get a single penny. So she's forcing me to go on blind dates with her distant relatives. Isn't it ridiculous? I'd rather have nothing to do with this broken family. But how could I possibly watch that woman flaunt the things that rightfully belong to my mother? The scenery outside the window flashed past like flowing light. He suddenly opened the window, and the whooshing wind poured into the car, carrying the distant scent of the mountains and fields. His hair was lifted by the wind. I've never had freedom, never. When I was a kid, if I didn't get first place in the grade, my dad would drag me out and beat me. Later, after my mom died, there was no one to hug me after he beat me. I ran away from home once. After I was caught, I was locked in my room for a week. I'm my dad's appendage, his showpiece. If I disobey him, he'll break my legs. Tell me, what's the point of living? The boundless wind was really too strong. It still made me shiver when it swept past me. He kept talking to me, and I kept driving forward, until the sound beside me disappeared at some point. When I looked over, he was asleep in his seat. I pulled the car over to the side of the road. I didn't know where I had driven to. There was a bridge here, and on the other side of the bridge was another brightly lit bridge. There were very bright lights there. The ceaseless flow of cars and the rippling surface of the river scattered its inverted reflections. I got out of the car. The phone in my pocket had been vibrating nonstop. An unfamiliar number. Hello? Lyra Elmsworth, where are you? Of all times, I heard the voice I least wanted to hear. I hung up the phone. A few seconds later, the phone rang again. Lyra Elmsworth, you didn't go back to the dormitory tonight, did you? Athelstan, are you my dorm supervisor, worrying about whether I went back or not? I was a little angry and couldn't help but raise my voice. What else do you want? I've been discharged from the hospital. You don't need to report that to me. Actually, that day, before I started drinking, I remembered who you were. I panicked a little. I knew what I had done wrong, but I was also very, very sad. I said a lot of bad things to you because I knew that all these years, you've been so good to me. Not because you liked me, never. I just wanted you to like me as a person, not because of some life-saving grace, not. Enough. Enough. He wanted to say something else, but I suddenly shouted. Even I was startled by myself. Athelstan, you must remember what you said that day. I'm a hypocrite. Everything I did for you is fake. You must remember that. This is what you said. I've already paid back what I owed these 10 years. If you still think I owe you, fine, then I'll crash myself once too. Lyra, don't. I could hear the panic in his voice so clearly. The person on the other end of the phone wanted to say something else, but someone took the phone from my ear and hung up for me. In the dark night, illuminated by only a single streetlight, there was broken light in his eyes. Hadrian pulled me into his arms. It was so warm. Perhaps the night wind was too cold. His voice was still clear and scattered, with a shattered silence. Let's run away somewhere, Lyra Elmsworth, he said. I never knew where we could run away to. The world was vast and boundless, but even the road ahead was dim in the early morning. Hadrian took over driving the car. He drove slowly. I was a little tired again and dozed off, leaning against the seat. When I woke up again, we were surrounded by endless wilderness. The wind made the wild grass sway. The starlight of dawn rotated. Where are we going? His car stopped in front of a 2-story building. The building was on an open plain. To the sky. To the, Lyra Elmsworth, are you afraid of heights? Not really, Senior. He naturally took my wrist and led me into the building. This is a skydiving club. The hour hand had just passed 4 o'clock. There were already people waiting on the first floor of the club. He seemed to be very familiar with Hadrian, raising his eyebrows at him. You came at just the right time. The first flight is about to leave. Hadrian yawned and pulled me to sit on the sofa opposite him. I timed it. The man seemed to notice me and smiled at me. Your girlfriend. There was no response for a long time. I was about to explain when Hadrian suddenly hummed softly. He was sitting next to me, so I heard it very clearly. I know that sometimes there's no need to over-explain, but such a straightforward admission still made me uncomfortable. My heart, which had been silent all night, suddenly started beating fiercely again. It was my first time skydiving. But Hadrian seemed to be an old hand. He helped me put on the harness. When he was buckling the buckle behind me, his hand pressed against my lower back with a very strong presence. I wanted to find something to say to break the silence. How high are we jumping, Senior? He didn't speak, but the pressure from his fingers somehow traveled through my tailbone to my whole body. Is there a possibility of dying, Senior? Still no answer. Senior? He hummed. Wait until I finish with your back. Originally, this sentence was nothing. But coincidentally, the man we had met on the first floor just happened to be walking past us holding a helmet, and he let out a few rather playful laughs. That sentence instantly changed its meaning. As if that wasn't enough, Hadrian finished, straightened up, tucked my hair behind my ears, and leaned close to my ear, speaking in a perfectly serious tone. "Your earlobes are red, Lyra Elmsworth." As if to add fuel to the fire. We were jumping from 4,000 meters. And it was a sunrise jump. The man with us in the helicopter said that today was particularly lucky. This kind of scenery was something that customers always hoped for but rarely got to see. The roar of the helicopter was very loud. Because Hadrian was going to be jumping with me, I was practically sitting in his lap. The harness had buckles that fastened us tightly together. I wasn't sure if I was more nervous about sitting in a helicopter flying 4,000 meters into the sky for the first time or about jumping down with this man. Anyway, at this point, I could even hear my own heartbeat. But suddenly, the scenery outside the window filled my eyes. I had never seen the sun rising from the horizon. The vast, boundless blue blended into the brilliant golden yellow. Rising to a very, very high place, even the clouds were below us. The arc of light in the sky leaped into my eyes. The light was so brilliant that it felt like I would never see it again in my lifetime. Someone jumped down at 3,000 meters, giving us a thumbs up as they leaped backward. Then it was 4,000 meters. When the helicopter door opened, the wind poured in. Hadrian put a pair of goggles on me from behind. "Are you scared?" Because the wind was so loud, he spoke directly into my ear. I shook my head. Mainly, I was strapped to him. I had no choice. The man with us was skydiving solo, so he jumped before us. He jumped from the railing of the helicopter, successfully showing off. Then, it was finally our turn. When he held me and sat on the edge of the plane door, about to jump down, he seemed to say something to me. But I didn't hear it. Below my feet was a vast sea of clouds. The wind howled past my ears. I probably only knew that he told me to hold onto the straps, and then he just jumped backward with me. That was the most beautiful sky I had ever seen in my life. The helicopter quickly disappeared from my sight. He flipped us over in the air. Looking down, I saw boundless mountains and rivers, like a dazzling golden arc of light surrounding the vast, boundless sky. The sun rose from the horizon, and the rosy clouds dyed the boundless expanse orange. Even shouting couldn't be heard. I just felt that at that moment, it would be good to just fall down like that, to fall into the embrace of the mountains and rivers, or to burn up before dawn. He really did take me to a place where no one else could go. Jumping down from 4,000 meters, to be honest, it was just a blink of an eye. It was very fast, very fast. After opening the parachute, I never thought this journey would end so quickly. But my legs were still weak. After landing, he was practically holding me as I was pressed against the ground. Without the sound of the wind, his breathing sounded in my ear. "Be my girlfriend, Lyra Elmsworth." He took off my goggles, tucked my hair behind my ears, and kissed me. "Lyra, are you and Athelstan fighting? I see you came back, but you haven't gone to see him." Clara was my childhood friend. After returning to my hometown for winter vacation, this group of friends visited each other. Maybe my return home this time was too unusual. Not only did I not follow Athelstan back, but I also refused all of Athelstan's attempts to see me. They all thought I liked Athelstan, that's why I had chased him for 10 years. I shook my head. Winter vacation activities inevitably included gatherings with friends, but I forgot to tell my childhood friend that I wasn't willing to go to gatherings where Athelstan was present. I still met him. He hadn't changed at all. He had always had a bad temper, but his popularity and bad temper were not contradictory in him. There were still people who would surround him. Especially girls. There were probably always a few who liked his cocky attitude. When I pushed open the door, a girl probably didn't notice me and was still talking about something I had done in the past. It was probably the summer of my senior year of high school. In order to retrieve the basketball Athelstan had thrown into the water, I jumped directly into the lake and retrieved it for him. The water wasn't cold in the summer, and I knew how to swim, but who would really be foolish enough to get their clothes all wet to retrieve a ball for someone? This incident later became a topic of ridicule for several girls when they got together. They thought it was funny that I was chasing after the person they liked like a clown, being played with. The girl was chattering on, and Athelstan, sitting there, was already full of impatience. He was probably about to open another bottle of wine when he raised his eyes and met mine. He stared at me, stunned. Seeing me arrive, the The girl who was talking about this not only didn't stop, but also greeted me. "Oh, Lyra, you're here. I knew you couldn't stand not seeing Brother Athelstan. We were just talking about you. Shut your damn mouth if you don't have anything to say." The sound of the bottle breaking echoed throughout the entire private room. Everything seemed to stop. When I reacted, he had already shattered the glass in his hand. He could even shatter this. The quality of the glasses at this store was really not good. The girl was so frightened that she hid to the side. Glass shards splattered onto his hand, and blood mixed with the wine. It was supposed to be a reunion of childhood friends who hadn't seen each other for a long time. No one expected it to turn out like this. I knew everyone was looking at me. Athelstan lowered his head. The wound on his hand was quite scary, with glass shards all stuck in his hand. It seems my arrival has spoiled everyone's fun. I tried to make my voice sound calm. I turned around, grabbed my bag, and left the private room. "Wait, Lyra." He called me from behind. The closed door abruptly cut off the fragmented words. It was almost Lunar New Year's Eve, but there was no festive atmosphere at all. If I didn't turn on the lights in the bedroom at 5 or 6 in the afternoon, all that was left outside the window was the fading light of the setting sun. I didn't understand why things had turned out like this. I didn't understand why Athelstan wouldn't let me go. The phone in my pocket vibrated, non-stop. I waited a long time before answering. "Hello? You sound like you're in a bad mood. Who can judge someone's mood based on a single word?" I twitched the corners of my mouth. The call was from Hadrian Finch. Actually, I had also rejected Hadrian. I couldn't be with Hadrian. Although he was very good to me, he was actually standing at a place very, very high above me. Rich people's way of de-stressing is skydiving. People like us can only smoke and drink. No matter how good he was to me, I just felt that it would be too easy for him to dump me. If he were a rich second-generation heir I didn't know, I might be more able to be with him. But it was precisely because it was him that I was more afraid of him leaving an indelible mark on my heart. "It's snowing in Xinjiang. I wanted to show you, but I suddenly realized you're not here anymore. I just went back to my hometown, Senior." He hummed softly and hoarsely. I don't know why, but after that day, I always couldn't help but rely on him. It was probably because he had once taken me to jump from a height of more than 4,000 meters. No one could easily forget such a scene. Hadrian didn't talk much, or even rarely. He didn't say anything after I rejected him, automatically maintaining a safe distance from me. But sometimes he would bring me a cup of warm milk when I didn't eat breakfast in the morning, and he always took care of me first when we were doing experiments. Even the people in the same group could feel some subtle flirting. They asked me if Hadrian was pursuing me. I buried my face in my arms. People are always very contradictory. You don't want someone to be good to you, but you can't bear to let go of their kindness. I didn't speak, and Hadrian didn't make a sound either. There were shouts from outside the window and the sound of bicycle bells. "Don't cry, Lyra. If you keep crying, I won't be able to resist going to find you." Tears soaked my sleeves. I was clearly just panting a little, but he still heard it. "Senior, stop being good to me," I said to him. He chuckled. "Lyra Elmsworth, I never thought I was being good to you. I just did what I wanted to do for you." My childhood friend rushed into my room. "Let's go, Lyra." She took my hand and pulled me towards the door. I had to hang up the phone first and asked her what was happening. "I'll tell you on the way. I'll take you to see." The winter in the South always carried a bone-penetrating damp cold. I didn't wear a scarf and shrank my neck, asking what she was dragging me out for in the middle of winter. As we walked, I realized that the destination was not right. It was the basketball court where Athelstan and the others often played. The lake next to it was the lake where I had jumped in to retrieve the ball for him that time. Some people were already gathered around the lake, all childhood friends and some acquaintances. And there was one person, struggling in the lake with broken ice floating on the surface. I thought my childhood friend had just brought me to see a fool swimming in the lake in the middle of winter. Later, I realized that it was Athelstan. He was probably about to swim back from the center of the lake. A gust of wind blew towards us. I didn't know how cold the lake water was. I just felt that my hands and feet were starting to get cold very quickly. What did he want to do? I frowned. Someone told him not to swim anymore. It was very dangerous in such cold weather. I stood there, watching him slowly swim towards me. He was completely soaked. I had never seen him so disheveled. Was I that disheveled when I swam to him to retrieve the ball that summer? When he reached the shore, he stumbled a little. He seemed to have swallowed too much water. His eye sockets were bloodshot. The emotions there were too strong, as if they were shouting something, wanting to devour me. Water droplets slid down his bangs to his nose. Lyra, are you satisfied? He looked at me, into my eyes. Like black pupils submerged in winter lake water, he looked at me frantically and stubbornly. It's okay if you're not satisfied. I can still do a lot of things. I'll make up for those things for you, one by one, okay? I walked towards him step by step. How long had it been? I hadn't looked at him so seriously in a long time. After my birthday that day, I never went to see him again. His madness and backlash were beyond my expectations. I couldn't understand him. When I stood in front of him, I heard his breathing become faint. I raised my hand and slapped him. A very crisp sound, echoing by the lake in the cold January winter. He stared at me, stunned. His wobbly eyes seemed unable to focus. His collar was wet and cold. When I grasped it, the lake water mixed with my palm. Are you trying to be a martyr, Athelstan? What do you want? Do you think I'll be relieved by this? Do you think I'll be comfortable if you feel like you've been hurt? Can you not put your own life on my shoulders? He was silent for a long, long time. I couldn't feel the coldness of the howling winter wind. I just felt angry. This Athelstan made me angry. He wanted to bind me in a form of offering his life. I hated it. Lyra Elmsworth, why did you stay with me for 10 years? His voice was so low it was almost inaudible, broken and trembling as he spoke. Do you know? It's very difficult to hold on to an unrealistic fantasy, and it's also difficult to hold on to you. Your kindness to me, can it be out of your own will, and not because of that stupid past where I saved you? Can it? It was like a plea. I had never seen him like this. I don't hate you, Athelstan, I said to him, releasing my grip on his collar. He stood there in a daze, continuing my words, one word at a time. So you don't like me either, and you don't love me. You've never been heartbroken because of me, have you? But as he spoke, he laughed. A fragmented laugh, burying a sudden sob. Huh, is that so? So it's already over. 10 years is 10 years, Lyra Elmsworth. You gave me a very long dream. You never even thought of giving me a chance to regret it, did you? Yes, it's over. I still don't know if my promise back then was correct, if my 10 years were worth it. It was probably a rather long story, crossing my unremarkable and restless youth. Even the ending wasn't so dramatic. When I was sad in the past, I would sit on the top of the mountain behind my house. After a wide mountain road, there was a city lit up with stars. It's so beautiful. Senior, have you seen scenery 1,000 times more beautiful than this? The person beside me laughed. Starlight spread out in his eyes. Really? I don't remember. When I received Hadrian's call, he had already arrived at the train station in our town. This person was actually taking the train for the first time. He brought very little luggage, too little. My dad threw all my things out the door, so I came to rely on you. Actually, the reality was far less easy than he made it sound. It seemed to have caused quite a stir, but he still didn't care. I thought, maybe he had been waiting for this day for a long time. The evening breeze blew up the colorful lights of the night. He was wearing very little. The light in his eyes was very bright, very, very bright. I'll probably rent a small apartment first. I have to start all over again. I was still planning to pursue you. Now I can't even afford a 20 yuan bowl of beef noodles. Don't pursue me. Yeah, I should wait until Let's be together, Hadrian Finch. He looked at me quietly. I had always liked his eyes because they had a distant galaxy, but this time he was stunned for a long time. He put his arm around my neck and was about to kiss me, but I avoided it. You're so strange. He simply rested his chin on my neck in this position. Lyra Elmsworth, what do you think you'll get by following me now? Murmured words, swallowed up in the night. The position of the future Mrs. Finch of the Finch Group? I thought the domineering CEO novels I had read in the past probably said something like that. He laughed, his breath gently tickling. Wrong. A 20 yuan bowl of beef noodles. You're too realistic, senior. He really took me to eat that bowl of beef noodles. Not many people eat noodles at night. It was almost New Year, and the owner's young daughter was waving sparklers on the steps in front of the door. The brilliant fireworks lit up the empty night. Later, I found out that when Hadrian Finch came to find me, he only had 20 yuan left in his pocket. That day, he just smiled and watched me eat up his food money for 4 days. He never promised me anything. He just did what he could for me. As for how he rose to prominence in the business world and far surpassed his famous father, that's a story for another time. The end.